everyone. Today we're talking about continuing aspects or continuing, I guess, like study on aspects. Hi. Um, and we are kind of doing not a review from last week, but a continuation from last week when we were talking about aspects and how to read them. I didn't know exactly what to call this class today because it is continuing on aspects to an extent. But we're just kind of honestly, we're getting into some of my, I guess, like favorite like parts of astrology other than aspects. So we're diving a little bit deeper into parts of astrology that still have to do with aspects still. And so we'll be talking about morning stars versus evening stars and how to find those in astrology. So if you guys want to pull up, actually, let's do this. If anybody is in the live for Facebook right now, if anyone wants to volunteer their chart, we can actually pull examples from your chart for a morning star versus an evening star. But while I wait on that, hopefully someone will volunteer their information. Or if not, we could just do a celebrity chart, whichever one is cool. So just as awesome, go ahead and type in your information and I will pull it up on the screen. You won't be able to see it on the live, but you'll be able to see it on the recording on YouTube. So we just to kind of describe what is a morning star versus an evening star. So in astrology, this is more a Hellenistic astrology kind of thing. I don't think modern astrology really emphasizes it as much, but a morning star is going to be a planet that rises before the sun in the birth chart. So if you were to like start rotating your chart clockwise, you were born on Valentine's Day. How cool. I always wanted like a holiday birthday. I got really close, almost really close to St. Patrick's Day, but about a week off. But okay, so I'll type in your information, but just kind of continuing on a morning star. So a morning star is going to be a planet in the chart that rises before the sun. So you have the snapshot of your actual chart. And then if you were to start turning the chart clockwise, so like in that primary motion, like we were talking about when we had the intro to astrology, I think it was like the third class or something like that. We talked about primary versus secondary motion. We are looking at the chart like it's an actual day, like the sun would rise from the first chart, from the first house to the 12th, to the 11th, to the 10th, and then to the 9th, to the 8th, to the 7th, and then after, when it gets to like the 6th house, when the sun is like in the 6th house, we know that the person has a nighttime chart by that time. And so we are looking for the planets that would, if we were continuing to like rotate that chart that way, we'd be looking for the planets that would come up over the horizon line of the 1st and 7th house before the sun. Those would be morning stars. And so those are the stars that, give or take, are going to be the ones that are in earlier degrees than the sun. So like say you had like a sun in Capricorn, but you had Mercury in Capricorn, but like your sun in Capricorn is like at 6 degrees, and then Mercury is also in Capricorn, but it's at 3 degrees. Mercury becomes a morning star. And morning stars are fun because these are going to be the planets that are said to be more masculine, more active. They don't have to be like Mercury is like a very neutral planet. And so it's going to, it doesn't even matter if it's like Venus. It doesn't have to be a masculine planet for it to be a morning star. So Venus could be like at 3 degrees Capricorn and your sun is at 6 degrees Capricorn. Venus is still the morning star. And so whatever the morning star is, the morning star is said to be a planet that's more active. It manifests itself a lot earlier in the person's life, and what it kind of like represents is going to be more apparent. So let me stop talking and actually plug in this information. Okay, so 7, and then 1 o'clock. Mm. Um, Jay, is that 1 o'clock a.m. or p.m.? Let me know. Oh, I cut out. Let me know if it's a.m. or p.m. For your birth time, morning or nighttime for 1 o'clock. Is it a.m. or p.m.? p.m. Gotcha. All right. Uh, okay, so then in Flint, Michigan. So let's look at this. Hey, nice to have you back. Okay, so let's see what we've got. So we've got Gemini rising. Sun is in Aquarius in the ninth. Uh, so we would put and then Venus is in Capricorn. So we would have to turn that chart. So if we started turning that chart, um, you have more than one morning star, and that's not unusual. A lot of people have more than one, but we could say that that one Saturn is going to be a morning star, because Saturn is right there at Gemini, but it's at 27 degrees. Oops, I'm not even showing this on the. Let me share my screen on YouTube. Hold on, or on the YouTube recording so that you can see it when I post it. Okay. So now we have the thing up. So, okay. So your sun is up here in the ninth house in Aquarius. So if we started to turn this chart, so that would make the sun go towards the right. And so we're turning it. That means that Saturn, that's already up underneath the ascendant at 9 degrees, is going to come up over the first house horizon line. So Saturn's a morning star in your chart. If we were going to go with like modern astrology, we would also say that Pluto's a morning star, Uranus is a morning star, Neptune's a morning star. I don't count the moon as like being a morning star or not because it's already one of the luminaries. But we would say like Venus is a morning star, and Jupiter technically would be a morning star because Jupiter is at 24 degrees Aquarius and your sun is at 25 degrees. Looking at evening stars in your chart, you have Mercury as an evening star and then Mars as an evening star. So evening stars are going to be the exact opposite of morning stars. They're planets that are going to rise after the sun. So when we're talking about morning stars and evening stars, it's all in relativity to when is the sun rising. Like if we were looking at your chart as an actual like day, not just a snapshot. And so evening stars are going to be planets that are, maybe they take more time to manifest themselves, or they are a bit hidden, they're a bit more passive, they don't really manifest like as quickly. They take time to kind of like warm up. They're going to be, I guess, more feminine in nature. And I hesitate to like even use that word because it's not like, like in regards to like women, but it's more about like being more conceptual rather than actually like literal or like active, which is like the masculine, I guess side. Masculine is going to be active. And then the feminine or the evening stars are going to be more passive. And so that would be your chart. So thank you for volunteering your information. So in that case, like we were talking about, Mars would be an evening star for you. So concepts that had to do with Mars. I'm actually going to keep your chart up because I think it's a good example as we kind of go on throughout this class. And we'll also have Mercury being an evening star as well. And then so let's talk about that a little bit. So I'm trying to think what I want to talk about first. So we can go a lot of ways with it. So let's talk about, I'm going to pick on Mars, on your Mars a little bit. So, so Mars is an evening star. And we were talking about how those things kind of manifest later. And I'm picking Mars in particular because it's already in a house that's all about delays. And so we would see this already. And Mars is in a place, not just in a place where it's a bit slower moving. The 12th house, Mars itself doesn't really do well in the 12th house because it does slow Mars down quite a bit. But it also is in Taurus, and Taurus is a Venus ruled sign. And so Mars is out of its dignity. So when we talk about dignity, and when we're talking about planets and where their placement is, Mars is, we're going to be talking about the planet versus the zodiac sign that it's in and that relationship that's happening there. If a planet is in good dignity, it's in a sign that is has similar, traits or like the actual sign and the planet, like they have something to do with each other, or they, are able to really, support each other. But the biggest thing that you want to remember with dignities in particular is like when we were talking about in Intro to Astrology, if you have planets that are in opposite planetary powers, such as Mars and Venus, then a planet is going to be out of dignity, or it's going to be really hard for that planet to express itself because it's kind of fighting against its own energy. So Mars is opposite of Venus. But when Mars is put in a Venus-ruled sign, it almost hinders Mars a little bit. It's not to say that, things can't be done, or, things can't get done, or you can't do great things with your Mars. It's just, it gives a bit of a struggle. So when we're talking about Mars being an evening star, it's talking about like some delays when it comes to maybe like Taurus-like things, or even like Mars-like things as well. But especially, I think this is where we can talk about dignities further. In a person's chart, we'll see that there are planetary dignities, which I do believe are called accidental dignities. No, accidental dignities are going to be dignities that are more so talking about the placement, so like the actual house placement and what the planet represents because it's in a certain house. So Mars represents its own concepts such as like aggression and drive and instinct and work and maybe like severing things. But for you in particular, it would also have the dignity of representing things like danger or like, and that's a Mars thing already, but like it also represents money for you. But it can also represent, prayer or like meditation, distance, because it's in the 12th house. So what are some of the things that we talk about with the 12th house? In connection to the divine. We can see like meditation, we can see isolation, we can see things such as delays as well. And because Mars is in the 12th house, Mars becomes almost like a conduit for all of those things as well. So if you're ever looking for why am I like kind of dragging my feet, why are things like kind of being delayed, you want to look at Mars because that's what Mars now comes to represent. in your chart in particular. This will be different for everybody, obviously. But Mars also represents Taurus-like things because it's in Taurus. And so when we talk about money, when we talk about maybe if we're putting maybe if we're putting like Taurus and the 12th house together, it could be like money made over time, or like resources that are gained over time, or delays surrounding resources, or struggles with like financial security, fears around financial security. All of that becomes associated with Mars. And so if you're ever like going through like a transit where something like that is happening, you want to look at what's happening with Mars in particular. And what aspects are being made to Mars. But Mars in the 12th in general can, in Taurus, can, come out of, I've seen it come out of quite a few currently. In Mars in Taurus Mars in the 12th can manifest a couple different ways. Mars in Taurus is going to be on, I guess, like on the positive. It's going to be someone that's very ambitious, someone that, they really go after what they want. It can be very focused on finding security or having security, or like working towards some sort of sense of security. There's something about like collecting, wanting to collect things, hold on to things. However, it's in the 12th house, which is all about release. And so it can be like maybe some fears about like having something, but then having it either snatched away from you, having security snatched away from you, or not being able to hold on to security, especially if it has to do with financial security, or like maybe it took a while to like find jobs that like gave you a great sense of like value or security, things like that. All those things. And there can even be like delays when it comes to just being comfortable, or like coming into a time where you feel like you don't have to fear like maybe the number in a bank account. I think that's like the biggest thing. With a lot of Gemini risings, this is the case. But it is especially so with Mars and Taurus in the 12th. It can be just like a lot of like, not wanting to release certain things when it does come to like, what do I value? Or, feeling like maybe you yourself are not working hard enough. That's usually not the case, but a lot of times that can manifest that way. It's like you feel like you're not doing enough, or maybe people are telling you like, yo, you need to go do this or whatever, and this will give you security, and like it can just become a lot of pressure. Yeah, and so the that Mars in the 12th, like, fun fact, Mars in the 12th can also like make you very sleepy. Like it's like, it's like all of that work kind of, being put forth. However, I will say that it's a very nice, like, creative outlet when you are able to really get into like a good groove with meditation. You're able to therefore create something beautiful. You kind of have to finagle Mars in like a weird way to like make it work. So coming into financial security might happen later in life, rather than like kind of just like with some people, it's right away. You really have to work at those things. In an earth sign, Mars in an earth sign is going to take time. And so it's not going to just be like, I got this job and, I was set for life or whatever, or like, something like that. It can also be like, working maybe in a area of work that's like a bit more behind the scenes, or has to do with for some reason I get like songwriting, or like something creative, like something that's like related to the arts, but it's like very like behind the scenes. It's not like, you are showing what are 12 plus 2. Gotcha. It might be. But yeah, no. So when Mars is in a Venus ruled sign, you're gonna see a little bit of that ambition um towards those desires. It's this, and that's why I say it's a lot of ambition, because it is like it can, I guess on its worst end it can become very pushy, because whenever you have Venus desire, which Venus isn't in your 12th house, however, Venus rules the 12th house for you, Mars is there, and so it's like I want to go after that desire and nothing's really going to stop me from doing it. But I guess it could feel like, those empty pursuits are kind of happening. Despite your best efforts, maybe things just don't pan out the way that you thought that they would, or that you planned for them to. But I think it's like a really great placement for connection with the divine, being very grounded, being able to, have that self-discipline when it comes to spirituality, and maybe working in more esoteric or more isolated fields that have to maybe do with the arts, nutrition. Taurus is also going to be like jewelry or banks. Banks could be like a thing with, I don't know if you've ever like worked at a bank, but banks are kind of isolated. I don't know. Like, I've never worked in a bank, so like they seem like very isolated to me. Like if you're not working up front, but like, it could be. Or like working in like some sort of spiritual place, like a church, not like a Christian church if that's not your thing, but like working in some sort of spiritual institution could be like a thing. You make jewelry, that would hit the nail on the head. Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's like, I think that's the beautiful way. When, if you don't mind me asking, when did you start making jewelry? Was it later in life, or have you just kind of always done that? So yeah, so that is Mars. You- if you did start, oh, in 2014, okay, yeah, so it was later in life. So yeah, no, that would totally be on and off. Okay, yeah. If you have definitely some delays, like doing things on and off, absolutely. So yeah, that's going to be that Mars in Taurus. I'm going to use your chart for one more example, and then we can jump to someone else's chart. So I want to take some time to kind of like come back to decans. I taught a class about this like a while ago, but I want to kind of circle back around. So there are two ways that you can do decans. So decans are going to be all about like degrees. And so you can do it in a couple ways. Let me actually see. Do I have a piece of paper? Because that might help. Okay, I don't have a piece of paper. I have a small piece of paper, and I don't even know if you'll be able to see like what I'm writing. So maybe I'll just try and like describe it as best as possible. So decans are going to be like, so I think like the most popular way that people will often see decans is going to be that you'll have like the first 10 degrees of a sign. So like, let's take Taurus, for instance. So the first 10 degrees of Taurus, from 0 degrees Taurus to 10 degrees Taurus, is ruled by Taurus's planetary ruler, which is Venus. And since we're going with Taurus, Taurus is an earth sign. And so the second 10 degrees of Taurus, so 10 degrees, like 10.1 degrees of Taurus to 20 degrees of Taurus, is going to be ruled by Mercury, because the second earth sign in that sequence of earth signs is going to be Virgo. Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So therefore the second decan, so that second 10 degrees of Taurus, from 10.1 degrees of Taurus to 20 degrees of Taurus, is going to be ruled by Mercury. And then the last 10 degrees, which is going to be like 20.1 degrees of Taurus to 30 degrees, or I guess like 29, I guess. Yeah, some people don't do like the 30 degrees, but like 20 to 29 degrees or whatever of Taurus are going to be ruled by Saturn, because the last Earth sign that we have is Capricorn, and Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. And so the last 10 degrees of Taurus are going to be ruled by Saturn. So you have Venus, Mercury, Saturn. That is one way that you can do decans, or you can figure out decans. And decans just give like a deeper meaning. They give a deeper flavor to the actual like placement. So if like your Mars in Taurus would technically be in a Saturn ruled sign, which I think just kind of, emphasizes what I was saying even more. It's going to make things, it's always going to make you have to like work for things, like work for some sort of sense of security, but it's also letting go of what isn't necessary. It's going to have you constantly, gain to release, like a lot of things when it comes to like finances, or like things that you value, things that you want to go after or you're pursuing. And so, but there's another way to do decans as well, which I think is like one of my favorite ways. I don't know, actually, this might not be my, it's one of my favorite ways. So basically, it's the same thing. So you're going to take the 12 zodiac signs. So 1 would be Aries, 2 would be Taurus, 3 would be Gemini, so on and so on, all up until 12, which would be a Pisces degree. So like if you had a planet at 9 degrees in your chart, for instance, that would be a Sagittarius degree, even if it's like in Aquarius or something like that. But so I guess then the question becomes like, what if you have planets like at like your Mars is at your Mars is at 23 degrees. So for that, since it's above 12, we just kind of start counting over again. So the way that I always do like quick math, like with this, is obviously just being like, okay, 24 degrees is always going to be a Pisces degree, because it's 12 and 12, it's 24. And then we subtract one of those, so it's going to be an Aquarius degree, which ironically in Hellenistic astrology is still a Saturn degree. But we could also say it's an Aquarius degree. And so if we put like Aquarius's flavor on Mars in Taurus, then we're still going to get like that sporadic gaining and losing kind of theme happening, but it's going to be very creative, very innovative. It's going to be about, I built this on my own, like kind of thing. And because I built this on my own, maybe I struggle with things a bit more. I really struggle to stand out. I struggle to maybe like get the recognition that maybe I deserve for my work. All of those things. And so that's kind of how that works. You can also do it in another way, which I will actually write this one out. And hopefully you guys will be able to see it. Some astrologers will do this. I do this every once in a while, where I will take, instead of doing like 1 to 12 from Aries to Pisces for the degrees, I will actually start with the one will be, or the first degree will be ruled by that actual zodiac sign. So for Mars and Taurus, that would be, that first degree would be a Taurus degree, which, give me a second so I can like calculate this, because I always have to write this out. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So we'll do this together. So doing it this way, the first degree in your 12th house would be ruled by Taurus. That would mean the second degree would be ruled by Gemini, which means, actually, I can make this a bit quicker. That means that the 13th degree is therefore going to be ruled by Taurus again, because if we keep counting from 1 to 12, that puts Taurus back at the 13th degree. So the way that I got that, I'll do the first 10, and then we'll just like skip back to, we'll skip down. So the second degree would be Gemini. Third degree would be ruled by Cancer in your 12th house. The fourth degree would be ruled by Leo. The fifth degree would be Virgo. And then the sixth degree would be ruled by Libra. Seventh is going to be Scorpio, a Scorpio degree. Eighth degree is going to be a Sagittarius degree. The ninth degree is going to be a Capricorn degree. And then the 10th degree is going to be an Aquarius degree. I lost my place there for a second. But then we keep going. So 13 degrees is going to be a Taurus degree. If we jump down further, that means that the 26th degree is going to be a Taurus degree again. So we just count backwards from that, which would make the 23rd degree, where your Mars is at, a Pisces degree, I do believe. Let me double check my stuff on that. So a Pisces degree. I want to say it's a Pisces degree. Yeah, no, it's a Pisces degree, which still also makes sense. It's giving your Mars that creativity, but Pisces is also, so coincidentally, but not coincidentally, Mars going in, being in a Pisces degree in Taurus is going to amp up the creativity a lot. However, it's still going to be, Pisces can be about like things passing away, things being about release. You really can't escape math and astrology. I do my best to kind of like filter it out. But yeah, there's no way to like to filter it out completely. But yeah, so that's going to be a Pisces degree. So it would amp up like that creativity factor for your Mars and Taurus in the 12th, but it would also amp up like maybe taking suggestions from others on like maybe what to do as far as making money, or, you know, being a bit of a psychic sponge or creative sponge, which I guess could work in its good ways, but also in its not so great ways. It can be a bit directionless when it comes to like certain pursuits and like kind of getting off topic and having to kind of like start things over a lot because of that release that Pisces degree is going to kind of like press into with the that Mars and Taurus in the 12th. Because this is also about isolation. So I would imagine you probably, while I'm sure you are someone that is very sociable, having Mars in the 12th, I don't doubt that you probably love to spend time like away from people. I don't know. This just screams to me like I can people, but I don't want to people a lot of the time. And maybe it's like, I think like all introverts are like that way to an extent. Like we can people and we can socialize, but like we don't like always want to socialize. And so yeah, you're currently hibernating. That is Mars in the 12th. That is Mars in the 12th in Taurus for sure. So yeah, so that is like a little bit about your chart. So oh, gotcha. You used to be an extreme extrovert. Got it. Yeah, no, so that is Mars in your 12th. Let's see. I wrote stuff down to talk about today. So if anybody else is here, you can put your information in the comment section. Yeah, you can give yours. While I'm waiting on that, I'm going to talk a little bit about aversion. So what aversion is. So an aversion is going to be when a planet is unable, or a house even, I guess, is unable to see another house. So these are kind of like predetermined. Yeah, no problem. Aversion, so like an aversion to the first house is always going to be the 12th house, the second house, the sixth house, and the eighth house. And that's why we say, like, if the sun is in the eighth house, the sun is dimmed. You can't really see the sun. Like, the actual, like, sun's light is not in an aspect to the actual first house. And so it can make these people very private, or people that are not seen very often. That's why we see a lot of times with planets in the sixth house, because they're in aversion to the first, they're literally not able to be seen. So a lot of times you'll see, like, with people who have planets in the sixth, maybe a lot of times their work is not really recognized by others a lot. And so we can see, like, maybe being a bit glossed over when it comes to work, or, being forgotten about when it comes to, like, working situations, or like what they do for other people. And so, yeah, so basically aversion just kind of means it's almost hidden. It's unable to be seen either by a house or a planet. If a planet is in a certain house, then you can't, it can only see certain placements. These are also going to be called inconjuncts in astrology, and we talked briefly about inconjuncts in last week's class, and that class is up on YouTube. So aversions are just going to be the same thing. Okay, so we have October 15th. And then 1995. Oops. At 1:39 p.m. 1:39 p.m. Okay. Dallas. No, it doesn't affect anything. So Dallas, Texas. It's funny that it was mentioned that you can't factor astrology out of any, or you can't factor, like, math out of astrology. And I was saying that, I was like, yeah, I tried a lot of times, because I always swore that I would never go into a profession that dealt with math. And here I am. Here I am. It's funny how the universe makes us eat our words sometimes. Oh goodness. Okay. Why isn't Texas showing up on here? We got Arkansas, we have Iowa, Wisconsin, Virginia. There's Texas. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So we'll do the same thing. We'll do another run another one for, like, evening stars versus morning stars, and then talk about, like, all the stuff we talked about before. So we're Cap Rising. Hey, Cap Rising. I'm also a Cap Rising. So so you have Libra in your 10th. For those watching, when you're watching this back on YouTube, it is going to look like your sun in Libra is in the 9th. I'm going by whole sign, so, like, in my brain, it's shifted, and so the sun in Libra is going to be in the 10th, really. Even though it might, I guess, like, pull you towards interests of the 9th house, so, like, traveling, legal things, or, like, being in some sort of, like, legal profession, or, like, really being someone that is very that emphasizes, like, fairness, or spirituality. But I'm getting off topic. So for morning stars that I'm looking at, Obviously, Neptune and Aquarius, not Neptune and Aquarius, Neptune and Uranus would be morning stars, because they're in Capricorn. And so if we start to if we start to rotate the chart, then Neptune and Uranus are going to be morning stars. Saturn is also going to be a morning star. Saturn's in Pisces. So you're coming up on your Saturn return. I'm like always super excited for people like coming up on their Saturn return. It's a fun time. It's hard, but it's a fun time. That would also make Mercury a morning star for you as well. For evening stars, we got Jupiter for you as an evening star. Mars is an evening star. Venus is an evening star as well. And so, your best friend is a Capricorn. So your Saturn return is a time where Saturn comes back to the exact place it was when you were born. And it's going to be it's a time where so here's my I'm going to give you the textbook definition, and then I'm going to also give you my advice. So, even though you didn't ask for it, so textbook says that a Saturn return is a time where you give up childish things, or childish things are just kind of ripped from you. So that includes not just childish ideals and just maturing, but it's a time of really, I guess, becoming an adult in all senses of the word. You get older, obviously, you're about to you start to cross that threshold into your late 20s, going into your 30s, because your Saturn return goes from age 28, I will say, but some astrologers will say 27 to 30 is your Saturn return, but I say about 28 to 30. And then you start to get older, you start to come to terms with mortality, but also all this crazy shit starts happening. By the end of your Saturn return, you almost don't recognize yourself. I know that I don't. A lot of the things that you maybe had issues with in youth, as long as you do the work, you start to get your shit together, as an adult, after your Saturn return. That's the big thing with Saturn returns is it's becoming an adult. It's a coming of age kind of thing. What my advice is, do not look it up online, because you will scare yourself half to death. I know I did. But your Saturn return is going to be, I think, it's going to be nice. It's going to be a lot of pressure. Saturn is a planet that is really all about hard work that is put into a situation. It's about planning, it's about waiting, it's about things being tested and things breaking, and then you having to put things back together, having to reevaluate healthy relationships or healthy ways of thinking, living, all of that. You're having to look at long term rather than the right now. There's a reason that people say that their 30s are the start of the best years of their life. It's because Saturn puts them through the ringer right before they turn 30. But Saturn, as hard as Saturn will kind of dig in when you have your Saturn return, Saturn always leaves you with a gift. If possibly, actually, I would guess it probably does. You're going to be moving. It's in your third house. The third house is all about extended family, sisters and brothers, and I could also imagine a sister-in-law. You're going to in August. Maybe. It might have to do with siblings, because it's going to be, you'll be getting a nice taste of it, because Saturn will be entering into Pisces in March, Aries season of next year. And so you're going to be getting a nice taste of what is to come for the next couple of years for you in March. but it's in your third house, which has to do with like communication. It has to do with like your environment and siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, all of that, all that. And so Saturn can, it's just it's a rough planet. It's going to really ask a lot of you. The thing with Saturn is about like the key thing with Saturn is necessity. What do you absolutely need? Saturn is all about minimalism. So but it's about like also building quality into that minimalism. And so Saturn's going to teach you how to say no to things. And it's going to really teach you, especially with Saturn in Pisces, it's going to teach you how to let go of things that are unnecessary, things that are maybe a bit delusional, or like things that maybe aren't set in reality. It can really kind of like X out those prospects, or like where you're seeing potential and not the reality of the situation. With Saturn and Pisces, it's going to tap on those fears a little bit, maybe around moving, long distance. You'll have to maybe let me know what happens during your Saturn return. I'd be surprised if you didn't like move out of the country, or if you didn't make some like long term, like some out of the country move, or like long distance move. Like I would be very surprised if you didn't make some long distance move, or if you didn't like join some sort of like, I'm like maybe even like become like, I don't know, like a priestess or something, or like something having to do with like maybe some like spiritual community, or spiritual establishment. I could see that as well. But yeah, don't look up Saturn returns, because they're going to be full of like stories about like how people have lost their not their lives, although people have like during their Saturn return. I always like look for that, like when I'm like watching my true crime documentaries. But um I might know. Yeah, you'll have to wait and see. Gotcha. Yeah, no. So, but yeah, your Saturn return will have to do with a lot of that, as well as it might have okay. So I was talking about like don't look online, because it'll be full of stories where people will be talking about like some people, like the minority, will be talking about how great their Saturn return was. Other people, most people will have stories about how like their wife left them, they lost their kids, they lost their house, and it was just like an awful time. I think I read a story about like how somebody was like absolutely traumatized by their Saturn return. As someone that has a nighttime chart, and Saturn is like not my best friend, but also Saturn, I'm also a Capricorn rising as well. So Saturn is my chart ruler. It was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. My Saturn return, like I did the work for it, and definitely there were some hard times. My Saturn return literally started with me losing my car and getting my car repossessed. Like literally, I remember that day. It was the day that my Saturn return started, and I lost, and my car got repoed. So like if that's like that's an indication of how like of some of the like the shit that and shenanigans that will go down. But if you can kind of push past like you losing things that seem so important at that time, and try and really learn from it, your Saturn return can be extremely, extremely beneficial. Like I said, Saturn might, really run you through, but as long as you're doing the work, it gives you such amazing benefits, like tenfold. Saturn is trying to get you to that top of the mountain. And as long as you're doing the work, you'll get there, and you'll be in better shape than you were, when you started. But I just went on a whole tangent about Saturn returns. So let's get into we did an evening star last time. Let's do a morning star. So let's talk about Mercury. So Mercury's in Libra in the 10th house. I guess, in the Placidus house system, which is what I'm looking at now. not in my mind, but actually on the screen. Mercury as a morning star in your chart would have really maybe pushed you to be someone that might always be like the peacekeeper, especially when it has to do with maybe like adults. Maybe even like, in your own circle, it can be someone that is more, level-headed, someone that is going to take into account how everybody feels, like what everybody is saying, taking time to, weigh the pros and cons and kind of listen to everybody rather than, making a decision on who's right and wrong, like right then and there. It's very much like a person that can lead through being level-headed. You've always been the peacekeeper. Yeah. And so the thing with Mercury in the 10th is it's going to, be very public in speaking. So Mercury in a Venus ruled sign in the 10th, I would wonder also if you, did any kind of like artistic speaking, like, if maybe like you're a motivational speaker or something, or like if you work in some sort of like if you work in some sort of profession that has to do heavily with communication, or if you're just like, again, like the peacekeeper at your job. It's at a 5, which is a Leo degree, I guess, by one way of looking at decans. So I would wonder if you're like a performer. Can you sing? Are you a poet? Do you just like do creative writing? Something like that. I mean, even though it doesn't have to necessarily do with the 10th house, these would be things that would come like very early. So like, it can even be like, just speaking out against like what you feel like is fair and what isn't in a situation. Whether it be with authority figures and in like in your own circle, it can be like, you wouldn't be the kid that, would sit by and just let injustices kind of just like fly. You'd be like, no, this is wrong, kind of thing. With Mercury in Libra at a 5. You love singing and writing so much. I'm like, I always, yeah, no, that completely counts. Um, yeah, and so I'm like, I love that. Yeah, no, because I'm thinking like Mercury in a Venus ruled sign is definitely going to be, um, it's almost like it's not just a leader that is very fair, and has like that soft touch, but is very influential. But it's also going to be maybe somebody that is very gifted in the arts, and that's something that they show on stage. It's also something that people really recognize about you since it's in the 10th house. This would be something that people right off the bat would have kind of noticed about you, like even at a young age. There can be like a lot of like, and with that, I guess like with that charisma comes like, being able to meet a lot of people. Mercury is all about talking and communication and connecting with others, especially when it's in a Venus ruled sign. And so it's going to have a lot to do with like you maybe, quickly either making associations or friends with other people. Never knowing a stranger can kind of be like a thing that comes in with Mercury as a morning star in the 10th. Let's see. So we did morning stars. We did morning stars. I think that was it. For some reason, I feel like we got through that really quick. Oh, because I was describing things that first time. Yeah, no, that Mercury in the 10th is going to really, especially when it does come to maybe like older people as well, or people that are like age older, like, maybe people that you can relate to more, or, you having favor with those people, can even be a way that that's expressed with Mercury in Libra in the 5th. It's like being able to have a good rapport with like supervisors or things like that. However, I would say, well, I guess we're getting into a little bit more than just the morning star, but there is that square from Mercury, from your ascendant to Mercury, that maybe could cause some issues, but I guess that would be something that you would probably have to look into further. at a different time. But yeah, so that would be your morning star Mercury. So we're going to move on. So we talked about aversions, we talked about morning stars and evening stars. And so let's talk about the last thing I want to talk about is going to be superior versus inferior aspects. And so I'll use your chart again. So when we're looking at superior versus inferior aspects, you want to look at like whatever planet you are looking at. So certain planets. So let's take Mercury and Jupiter in your chart. So I'll show this like as best as possible, like on the mouse, on the YouTube recording. So Mercury is over here, like on the right side of the chart. So we're going to take, like if Mercury were like coming down, like if you yourself were Mercury and you were coming down to the center of the chart right here. So Jupiter is to the left of Mercury. This would put Mercury at a superior position to Jupiter. So therefore, we would say that Mercury is applying itself to Jupiter. We could do the same thing with Mars. Actually, let's actually do Mars because I like Mars better because Mars is a malefic. And this, I think, comes, in when we talk about like things like about how malefics affect other planets. Because there are a couple different ways that we could see things turn out. So one way we could see like a Mars Mercury a Mars Mercury actually darn it, no. Okay, I'm not going to use Mercury. Let me pick a better example because I want to use a square that you have. Let's use, I want to use a square. Okay, yeah. Okay, let's use instead. Sorry, I jumped around there a lot. So let's, for inferior versus superior aspects, let's look at your Jupiter and your Saturn. So Jupiter is here in Sagittarius, Saturn is here in Pisces. And so let's talk about that. So we could say, like, if you just saw that you had Jupiter in Sag and Saturn in Pisces, just by saying that, you could say, okay, maybe Jupiter is in the 12th in Sagittarius, so there might be maybe like some ability to really, or like some want to kind of like disappear to like far off lands to kind of like, have some alone time, or you are someone that maybe wants to explore, whether it be like on a trip, like on trips and like wanting to travel, or it could be like, someone that really dives into a lot of esoteric study. And then that square with Saturn would be like maybe some tension with maybe like experiencing or like not even experiencing like maybe the view that maybe siblings have to like your views or like spirituality, or even like living in an environment that isn't, I guess, the most accepting of those like spiritual views or perspectives, or maybe having a hard time escaping certain fears when it comes to, maybe being more vocal about your spirituality when it comes to, people around you. It can manifest in a lot of ways. So just by like that square, we know that something is happening there. But the question is, which planet has the most influence? And when we look at this, we're going to look at Jupiter. We're going to look at Jupiter first. So we're looking at Jupiter first because if we take Jupiter into the center of the circle, so like imagine your Jupiter in Sagittarius. You're not able to see this obviously, but you'll be able to see it on the recording. that Jupiter in Sagittarius, it's in, think of like if someone were walking up behind you, that person is in a superior aspect to you. You are much more vulnerable to them than they are to you because they're behind you. So they have a full view of you. However, you do not have a full view of them. And so that is kind of like what Jupiter is doing to Saturn. Jupiter is coming up behind Saturn. So therefore, Jupiter in your chart is in superior aspect. It has a bit more power. So we would say that Jupiter's effects and the things that Jupiter represents are almost like overtaking Saturn. And so that's nice because we have a benefic overtaking a malefic, which is honestly what we want. Like, if it were the other way around, there would be some issues. So Jupiter rules like what? Abundance. It rules over spirituality, philosophy, travel. Saturn can be struggles and limitations. It can be about like fear and illness. It can be about restriction as well, and just hardship. So we would say that maybe like the abundance aspect, it might not be like, it might not be the easiest thing for you to tap into. However, like when it comes to like community that you're able to express your ideas to, you are not as limited as maybe other people are because Jupiter is in that superior aspect to Saturn and it has more influence. And so it actually maybe gives you, just because it's a square, a lot of people will say that squares, are going to, of course, have a lot of tension, but that it's going to be almost like a positive square rather than like a negative square. And so Jupiter in that way would be like, sure, maybe you have some delays, like finding a community where you're really able to voice, your belief systems and, find peace and, just kind of have that Zen place. But eventually you do find it and you really build foundation in that place and you really, are able to, maybe study in the 12 houses about secrets. Sagittarius is about like belief and philosophy, and I love that you have Saturn and Jupiter both in traditionally Jupiter ruled signs, and so we can see a lot of mutual reception. So it's more about, it's not like whether you will find community that is willing to accept your ideals and be that safe space for you. That's a bit secluded, isolated, and more secretive. But it's all about like, you actually building roots there. And so that's a nice thing because that square with Jupiter and Saturn could be a lot uglier, but it's not that bad, like in your chart overall. Yeah, absolutely. And so, so that is your chart for superior and inferior aspects. So let's do a celebrity chart and then I think we'll be all done for today. So let's see whose chart pops up. Let's see. If this would just go back to let's do Johnny Depp's chart. Why not? Why not? We'll do Johnny Depp's chart. Look at what he has going on, and we'll apply everything we talked about today to his chart. So, Mr. Depp is a Leo rising. He has his sun in Gemini, moon in Capricorn. I know, right? Fun. He's like, I figured it's nice because we all the stuff he has going on, but so we have his sun is in Gemini, which means that his morning stars are actually going to be like half of his planets. Half of his planets are morning stars. So wow, a lot of stuff just kind of in that. Oh my gosh, that explains so much. because that would mean that Venus is his morning star, Saturn is a morning star, Jupiter is a morning star, and Mercury is a morning star, which means that which explains so much because became famous very early in his life. Because Venus is all about, like, it's about values and money and, maybe relationships as well. But it's also like, beauty and admiration, especially when it is in the 10th house. And then, Mercury is about communication. So literally, like, in Mercury, and I would also like to note, like, again, you guys will see it on the YouTube recording, Mercury and Venus are conjunct in his 10th house, and those are both morning stars together. So it's not just about how he looks, but also what he's saying, what he's creating with his words becomes like, it's almost like all of that is manifested very early in life. So literally him like being an actor makes sense, and having a lot of success very early in life and having this like adoring fan base makes a lot of sense very early in his life. Jupiter, which is a planet all about like abundance and like riches and expansion and philosophy and teaching and just kind of all around like general like really good energy, is in Aries. And so it's all about like pioneering something new and authenticity and uniqueness, and all of that manifested very early. Look at like the things that he's put out in his career. Saturn's in Aquarius in his 7th house. I don't know much about Johnny Depp's relationships other than this Amber Heard situation, but I know like through the case, like he's had a relationship with Winona Ryder, and then of course Kate Moss. I've known more about Johnny Depp like, through this case than I have like in my whole life, but yeah, so that would also make like maybe issues with relationships or issues committing to a person, or having relationships that really stay, something that manifests very early in life as well. Actually, I take it back. Like, actually, all of his planets are morning stars. Yeah, all of his planets are morning stars. He doesn't have any evening stars. Yeah, he doesn't have any evening stars. Wow. Yeah, because that would put Mars and Pluto and Uranus and Neptune also as a morning star. Okay. Yeah. No, that's like that's all of his all his stuff is just like it just manifested very early. I don't know if it's like rare. I will say that I think it's rare. I'm sure, like, because of course I haven't seen everybody's chart in the world, but I think it's rare. Like, but yeah, like that makes a lot of sense. Like all of his planets are morning stars, so everything just kind of like manifested super early for him. Wow. So I'm like, I think like my only thing with that is I'm like, okay, if everything just kind of manifests like from the beginning of your life, that means that your whole life is just kind of like laid out like right then and there, which kind of like makes me personally like ask, well, what is what's left to be discovered if nothing's like maturing? Like, I mean, I guess on one end it's saying like he is who he is and he's always been that person, and so there's nothing that's really still like actively like manifesting. There aren't a lot of delays, which delayed gratification can be a good thing, and I'm sure it comes with its pros and cons when you don't have any sort of like delayed gratification when it comes to maybe some things. I'm sure he's had like forms of it, from what I understand, again from this case, like his situation with his ex-wife is not the first abusive situation that he's been in. I do believe that there was a situation with his mother all through his childhood. But so we look at the morning stars in his chart, and then let's look at the aversions, or sorry, not the aversions, the superior versus inferior aspects. Let's choose one. I'm going to pick, let's do, we'll do Sun in Gemini to Mars in Virgo, which is going to be a superior, it's the Sun is superior to Mars in Virgo. So because it's going to be, if we were actually taking the Sun's place and going down the center, Mars is going to be to the left. And so therefore Mars is going to be like, Mars is in the inferior position. So the Sun is applying itself to Mars's things. So it's a hard work ethic. It's going to be somebody that's really going to focus on the smaller details. I can only imagine that he's probably somebody that likes things to really be just so. Having that Uranus like right on top of his Mars, I imagine it's like, it's not just like that he's, very very much like an attention to detail person, but also like things need to be almost perfect. And if they're not perfect, then he gets quite a bit of anxiety over those things. That's a lot of like nervous energy. However, I will say that a lot of that is still coming from the Sun, but it also really, it's not just about the attention to detail. When the Sun is applying itself to Mars and Uranus in Virgo, it's also more so about, it has to be something different. He's working to create something different, something innovative, something that no one's ever seen before, and he wants it to be perfect, like executed perfectly. Or like for what he has as his vision, because Uranus is all about vision, and it's about working with other people to maybe create that vision. So I would say that maybe he's a micromanager, just a little bit, like just a little bit, but he's very creative, and definitely somebody that enjoys working with other people, and he's really able to have that back and forth and bounce ideas off people. And I see why he's been so successful. But yeah, a lot of anxiety for sure. But with that Sun, even with the Sun making superior aspects. But it puts him in a leadership role. Again, don't know much about him except for like what has kind of come out in the case, but I would imagine like, producing movies is, a big thing like that he does, because that Sun is going to be all about leadership and authority. And so having that apply itself to another Mercury ruled sign, it's going to be like telling people what to do. It's not just working with people and being part of the team, it's like heading the team. And so I imagine that he's probably a producer, not just an actor. Yeah, I could totally see that, being a perfectionist on set, and it causing him like a lot of anxiety, like feeling that he needs to, and I'm sure he's also somebody that's very much like deadlines are big for him. Like, it needs to be done in a certain way, and it needs to be quality work, but it needs to be different and executed just so. But we also need to get this out by a certain time, and that deadline is non-negotiable. So it can come out that way as well. So that is his chart. But other than that, you guys, that is class for today. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you guys did want to book any readings with me, you can go over to EdenITarot.com. Nick, this Saturday will actually be my last class that I'll be teaching. I guess on live. If you guys did want to do apprenticeships with me, that's where I'll be doing like all of the I'll be teaching the whole curriculum. But I won't be doing, I think I won't be doing like public classes anymore. I'm just moving more to private apprenticeships. So if you wanted to like learn how to read charts and everything like that, you can get on the list for that, because I'll be going exclusively to private apprenticeships. If you wanted to book a reading, you can go to EdenITarot.com. I do my services there. I also have subscriptions where you can meet with me more than one time a year for a monthly fee. And other than that, I will talk to you guys later.